Welcome to Galcom's Mission Compass podcast. To learn more about Galcom and our guests today, visit galcom.org.
In the Gospel of Mark, Jesus commissions his disciples with a worldwide missionary assignment. Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. Evangelism was the final instruction from Jesus to his followers. Today, generations later, the Great Commission remains the greatest calling of Christians to a lost world. Welcome to Mission Compass, your guide to the Great Commission, presented by Galcom International. On today's Mission Compass, we invite you to engage with us in fulfilling the Great Commission as we talk with mission workers about what God is doing through them as they share the gospel of Jesus Christ around the world.
Hello, friend, and thank you for joining us on today's Mission Compass, presented by Galcom International. I'm Ron Harris. You know, Galcom exists to give tools to missionaries and pastors who have answered the call of Christ to go into all the world and preach the gospel. By using solar-powered radios and audio Bibles built right here at Galcom International, we are able to multiply their impact and reach more people with the gospel. And that's what we're going to talk about on today's Mission Compass with our program host, Tim Whitehead. Tim, I know you have a special guest who's with us today.
Well, thank you, Ron. 14 years ago, when I joined Galcom, I stepped into the role in January, and we were right in the middle of a radio installation in Zambezi, Zambia. Then right after that, we did one in Kasempa, Zambia. And we did all this other work. And so I thought I knew Zambia pretty well. Well, just a little while ago, we got contacted by Brad Sinclair of the Zambia Project, and he's working in a part of Zambia I knew nothing about. So I thought, hey, we got to get Brad on the Mission Compass program, sharing about good old-fashioned pioneering missionary work to an unreached people group. Brad Sinclair, Brad, thank you so much for joining us here on the Mission Compass.
Thanks, Tim. It's great to be on and get to talk about missions. It's exciting.
And to talk about Zambia. One of my first trips ever as a missionary, I went to Zambia. I was actually an accountant. I was auditing projects there. And I was introduced to this very modern country. English is the national language. But then I learned that there's dozens of tribal groups. And so tell us a little bit about the part of Zambia you're working in, what tribes you're working in, and kind of the challenges you have.
Yeah, I think Zambia is it's a large country. It's deceptively big. And we work in the western part of Zambia. It used to be a separate kingdom with a king that would rule it this is before independence. And then when they went independent, it still stayed almost isolated and very rural. So infrastructure didn't come in too quickly. So a large part of the province is still very, 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 very underdeveloped. You've got a kind of a tar road coming in and maybe one going out in the other way. And other than that, it is off-road. And we've got the Zambezi, it's beautiful. Actually, Western Zambia is beautiful. Yes, it is far out and it's a difficult region, but it is exquisite. We sit looking over this beautiful floodplain of the Zambezi, where Zambezi comes right through it. But the nature of that is that we have all these tributaries coming off the Zambezi as well, and these large floodplains, and half of the province can get flooded for 6 months of the year and become inaccessible. So it's kept it incredibly isolated in many communities. So I think that tribe-wise, there isn't an official count, but we're looking at about 40 tribes in the province. Some of them are just smaller dialects than the others, but I would say there's probably about 15 larger tribes throughout Western Zambia that have unique languages or unique cultures around them as well.
So then this presents significant challenges as a missionary just to get face-to-face with someone then.
Yeah, very much. You know, I'm thinking of if you go up the Zambezi and then up a tributary called the Lunguvungu, you would have to go on a boat.
You're making that up. You made that name up.
Lunguvungu. It's a beautiful name. The tributary next to it is the Liambimba and the Lianginga. It's quite nice names. I'm not making this up. You can go Google it.
Okay.
But these small little tributaries and rivers, they're far out. Some of the DSTV documentaries and whatever else are based on these kind of rivers where people go far out to explore. And We've got the privilege to work in those communities and along these rivers, but you're looking at 2 days drive with a boat in flood season to get up there. And so to try and get to those communities, sometimes it's actually impossible for some parts of the year unless you're willing to wade through serious water, which we've got some incredible Zambian missionaries doing crazy things like that. But on the other side of the province, so that's the north side, from where we are based in and live in the center of Western Zambia in a place called Mongu, you could drive the other direction another 10 hours to get to off-road, to get to the communities there. And just to give perspective, it's always a fuel station. The closest fuel station to those communities are 10, 12 hours drive. So these are far out, difficult to traverse, often not accessible areas. I think if you go online and you search, Zambia is considered a Christian nation, but the practicality is we go into many, many, many communities that when you ask, do you know Jesus? They say, no, he hasn't come to our village. He hasn't been there. And it's a joy to be the first to come and share the truth. And actually, this is the area where David Livingstone passed through. When you read through a lot of his books and his letter, this is that region. So it's a joy to be working where he worked and in communities where it's the first time they're hearing the gospel, and they are so excited for the truth. You find people and witch doctors and anyone just absolutely burning their charms and their witchcraft and turning away from the pastor at a drop of a hat because they realize this is the truth. We've been waiting for it. And so I'm rambling on here, but I get excited about this. We even have communities where we'll get there and they say, oh, we knew you were coming. So we don't really know how. And they start explaining, no, we had a dream last night or the last week. And this guy came to us in the dream. And he said to us, they described this person and they said, no, he came to us and told us, you guys are coming to tell us about him. And his name is Jesus. Never heard about Jesus. And you rock up there and you find this community that have already established themselves and they were sitting there, 40, 50 people sitting there waiting for you to arrive. With no cell phone signal, no network. They weren't told we were coming. So we have the most incredible testimonies, but the reality is because of this physicality, this difficult province, it stays completely unreached. Most of these communities are unreached, or they have a type of churches, but we wouldn't call it a church. It's the pastors or the leaders or whatever you would want to call them are having relationships with their community to give them blessings, if you know what I mean. A lot of them we've come across, they will even smoke marijuana and other things to have the confidence to preach. You'll go into an area, they'll say, okay, we have a church, we know about Jesus, but when you explain salvation, they'll say, no, but we thought when you give money to the church, you're saved, and you get baptized once and that's it, and you're forever saved, and you can do what you want. So that's the environment we're working in. It's such a privilege to be working at unreached people groups and seeing God do incredible things.
There's the famous missionary book, The Peace Child, by a missionary that worked in Papua New Guinea, how he said God has put his testimony in the hearts of every tribe. There's an angle, there's an evidence that he's put, angle's a bad term. There's an evidence that he's put in every community. I've never heard it this much. Like we've heard of Muslim people seeing these visions that Jesus is calling them. And God promises, if you seek me with all your heart, you will find me. These people are seeking and you're coming with the truth. And it's incredible that they're telling you, we're waiting for the truth. We know what we believe is wrong. I've never heard that before.
There was a funny situation where we were praying and we went out as a group to kind of do a bit of evangelism. And we felt strongly that we shouldn't just find the first community we come across. Just hear from God, be led by God, go into the right place. So we skipped this village, skipped that place. And all of a sudden I saw this little kind of fence falling over and just felt God leading us there. And we walked in and we found these 4 or 5 people. And it sounds like a joke. There was a prostitute, a drunkard, an alcoholic, and an albino person. It was like, okay. And we get talking and sharing and whatever. And then later on, before we leave, they started sharing that actually they felt they needed to start this Bible study. And they were rejected by the world and the community. But they knew they needed to do this. And they built this little shelter and they started sitting under the shelter when I arrived. And that's where they were sitting with their Bibles ready. They said, who amongst us is going to share? And they said, no. They feel that someone will come. And in that moment, we arrived. And yes, God is just so good. how can you not see transformation after that, you know?
This is incredible. This is absolutely incredible. I've gone on mission trips. I've gone out with our partner missionaries, and we've worked hard. I've never seen a community so ready for the gospel, so ripe to change, to transform. But it sounds like you have a real issue with workers. There's just not the pastors, there's not the missionaries there. So what are you doing then? Are you doing some pastor training or equipping, or how are you handling that situation?
Yeah, so we want to build through local Zambian missionaries that are feeling called by God. So we've got a local church in Mongu, and that we call it like it's an engine room of building, discipling leaders. And at the moment, we've got about 6 to 8, or let's call it 2 up and coming and 6 area leaders. And these are guys and ladies that feel called by God to reach their own people in their own villages. And they're going into these areas and planting churches, sustaining those in a very sustainable way. So we want to see churches that are planted that can also go out, and as they also feel called by God, and they have the burden of also reaching their community and other communities. So they go and plant churches on. And we've seen a generation. So a church planting a church, and getting to a 3rd generation, even sometimes a 4th generation. So at the moment, the churches we're aware of and that we sustain and fall into this kind of system is about 160 churches. And we done the calculations for the province. We feel the burden for the province. We want to see a church within walking distance, a life-giving church within walking distance of every community across Western Zambia. And that means we need to plant and see 2,500 churches planted. And we incredibly committed to that, but I think this is where the radio comes in, is we can do that and we can plant these churches and they can go out and plant other churches, but it is so hard to be in all these communities, to take a community that have heard about Jesus for the first time, have a Bible to be able to use, which it's a whole nother part of the project, and I'm sure we don't have time for it, but we're busy with 5 Bible translations in different languages here. But we can have all of those things in place, but we can't be present in the community, discipling as frequent as we need. We worked out that even if we had a team of 30 people planting a church every single day, it will still take us 10, 15 years to plant all the churches. It's don't quote me on that maths. If you go home and if you're at home doing the maths, please don't do it too well, because I might be wrong. But the point is, it's going to take a lot of effort, and we can't disciple in those communities and ensure that the churches that we plant one day don't become cults of their own.
Right.
We don't want to build into that.
We want to talk about that radio element. And here at Galcom, we talk about multiplying missionary impact. That's what radio does. So it comes alongside someone like yourself, and it gets you to be that presence in the community through radio. We're going to talk about that in just a minute, but we want to take some time for God's Word. Bonnie Sale of Guidelines International is going to come in and join us now. We're right back with Brad Sinclair of the Zambia Project right after this.
All hope was gone. She was widowed, and her only son had died, dooming her to a life of insecurity and social exclusion. I'm Bonnie Sala with Reset. The story of a grieving widow in the Gospel of Luke reveals much about Jesus. As Jesus and his disciples entered a village, a funeral procession was coming out of the village gate. The young man who had died was the widow's only son, and a large crowd from the village was there with her. Luke writes, "When the Lord saw her, his heart overflowed with compassion. 'Don't cry,' he said." Now, there's a lot behind those words that the original language reveals. The word that's translated compassion comes from a word that means intestines. Luke wanted his readers to know that Jesus had deep, gut-wrenching feelings when he saw the distraught mother. Jesus immediately sees into this woman's situation, perhaps bringing to mind the fact that his own mother would suffer similar crushing loss. Jesus' compassion moves him to act. Walking over to the coffin, he does something unspeakable. He defiles himself by touching it and says, "I tell you, get up." Now you know what happened. The dead boy began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. This is the God of the Bible. His name is Emmanuel, meaning God with us in the loss, the disappointment, and the brokenness that this life holds. Luke's story of the widow and her son reveal that God sees and, deeply moved by compassion, enters into the lives of men and women with healing. This is a God who has come to give you life. I'm Bonnie Sala with Reset. To hear this again, read or share this, Or to find more resources like this, visit guidelines.org.
You may be listening to us on your computer, but you can also find us on your smartphone using Spotify, iTunes, or other streaming platforms. Just go to galcom.org and choose your favorite. Make sure to subscribe, follow, and share our podcast.
Welcome back to the Mission Compass. I'm your host, Tim Whitehead, with Brad Sinclair of the Zambia Project. Brad, we started talking about Western Zambia and we jumped right into all the situation there. We didn't talk about your ministry at all. Really quick, what is the Zambia Project? We can tell by your accent, you're not from around here.
Well, it depends where here is.
That's a good point.
I'm originally from South Africa. Grew up in Cape Town in South Africa, married my wife. She's also from South Africa. And we've been in Zambia. First time I came up was somewhere 20 years ago, but full-time with my wife, we've been here 6 years. Before I was here as a 19 and 20-year-old for 2 years. So Western Zambia has become almost my second home and love.
So tell us about the Zambia Project. Is this then a mission agency out of South Africa?
Yeah, initially planted from a church or group of churches in South Africa, but very quickly, because of the burden being so large and we're having so many partners that are like-minded and want to make a difference in Western Zambia. So we have likes of Chi Alpha in the US and others around America, Australia, Ireland, South Africa, churches coming and sending teams to help, but as well as partners like the Seed Company and Wycliffe in the Bible translation, yourselves, Galcom, as we grow together. And it takes a lot to make a big impact. So there's been a lot of partners that have made a significant difference here.
You said the magic word here. So before we go get to talk anymore, you said short-term teams. Let's make it real quick here. If someone says, hey, well, we've been looking at our church, we want it, COVID's over, we can start traveling again, we don't know where to go. If they want to learn a little bit about you, where do they look you up and how do they learn about you and what opportunities are available?
Yeah, so I think the great place to start is on our website. The project is quite large and multifaceted with everything from, we've got a orphan care and vulnerable children care. So we've got a school based on that as well, a 600-700 kids school. We have a malnourishment center, WELS programs, and that kind of diverse things that we want to see the province really uplifted by the gospel, not just planting churches, but we want to see the people cared for. So there's quite a lot of different areas, and I would say the best place to start is on our website. You can go to the Zambia Project.
Yeah, the website is thezambiaproject.org. I can see there you're doing water wells. Like you said, there's schoolwork. There's, of course, the evangelism, all sorts of great things going on here.
Yeah, so I think contact us through the website, and we would love to get in touch and see where we can partner and make a difference in the province together.
All right. With the time remaining, let's talk about the vision for radio because, hey, we here at Galcom, we think radio is the most efficient way to get the gospel out. It's not the best. Face-to-face is always the best. You know, in the shelter under the tree with the motley crew there that you found. But tell us, what's the plan for radio?
You know, talking about our problem of not being in the community, I think radio is a fantastic tool to try and bridge that, where we can be supplementing our amazing leaders on the ground with content that is being broadcast into those communities, whether it's discipleship content, doctrine, whether it's just worship music written in local languages and being played that they can sing in their heart language, which is fantastic. Even scripture being read from those translations and Bibles that are being translated. So radio allows that to be possible. But the challenge is that we feel the burden for the province, not just the region. And I think in radio, it can broadcast across great distances where we can't get to all the time. But the reality is that we need to really put multiple broadcast locations across the province to be able to this happen. So where we're at the moment is we put a studio together. We've got a first tower location where we're broadcasting from. But we're praying and trusting God that we can grow from there and increase the impact across the province.
So friends, this is where we come in at Galcom. This is our little part. Everyone's got a part to play in the Great Commission. God has called us to do radio. God's called Brad to go over to Mangu in Zambia, and he's calling you to participate too. We want to help with these radio stations, with what are called repeater stations, so they can put another one in another area, and they will have a presence in the community. Brad, you mentioned that you plant a church, you don't want it to become a cult unto itself.
Yeah.
And so there needs to be that connection. There needs to be good, solid Bible teaching every day. That's the important part. And then you have the weekly church, and you have the fellowship and the larger fellowship and on. But that's that daily presence that radio provides. Help us out. Visit us at galcom.org. If you can make a gift, you just put in the memo line, Zambia Project, the Zambia Project. And we know those funds will be designated towards getting equipment as well as solar-powered fixed-tune radios. And we're working on, as you said, the Wycliffe and the Seed Company are working on Bible translations. Any work on audio recordings of those Bibles?
We've worked with E3 and their orality work before, and we've done some of the story production. We haven't got moved into audio production of any of those translations yet. We have just in the last year come to the final draft of the New Testament, and we are very excited. We're going into publishing of one of those 5 languages at the end of this year. But we are trusting God for the next step, which is Old Testament, as well as hopefully some audio content so that we can be using the radio. We have used Mini Bible College and some other content that has been produced on audio and that we've worked with translation. And there is one of the languages does have an audio Bible, but we are already airing that as well.
Really quickly, friends, Mini Bible College, we have a great partnership with them. They provide training for pastors, for non-literate pastors. So they were working in Uganda, I think, originally, and they were training all these pastors and they couldn't read. So they did 30 Old Testament kind of seminary level teachings for pastors, New Testament, and then another 30 family and marriage courses training, so that these guys that are going out and kind of being the pastors in these areas, they've got a good, solid foundation. So Brad, you got all great partnerships, great content. How big is your team there on the ground?
Our missionary team, so in terms of our ministry going out and planting churches, is around 10. We've got the 6. This is not foreign missionaries, by the way. Sorry, let me just clarify. Those are our Zambian leaders that are from here. We've got about 6 area leaders that take responsibility, and some of them will oversee almost 70 churches, some 10, 15, 20 as they grow. But our biggest staff, if you look on the website, we do a lot, is about 150 staff in total. So the bigger work is large. Radio, we have 4 full-time on the radio, and we have a volunteer base of between 20 and 30 for the radio specifically.
Friends, this is a great opportunity. David Livingston, Dr. Livingston, I presume, frontier mission work, taking boats down the Zambezi River to get to these tribal groups to share the gospel for the first time. If you want a life-changing adventure, get involved in the Great Commission. Visit the ZambiaProject.org. Take a look at the opportunities to go with a small group from your church. They have the infrastructure. They have the team there that can host you, that can train you, that can keep you safe. But to get out and exercise that Great Commission muscle, get involved in sharing your faith, and then prayerfully consider, if you can't go, helping us equip them with radio so that that radio signal can go. Brad, we are so excited to be partnering with you on this. It is exciting. It's thrilling to see the area you're going into and to be part of this. We pray God's richest blessing on you. Thank you for joining us here on the Mission Compass. And I know we'll be talking a lot in the future as we get this network of repeater stations all over West Zambia.
Thanks, Tim. It's so great to be partnering with you and your team. It's so clear when we chat that you're just like-minded. I just thank you so much for what you've been involved so far, and we're excited that as we see churches throughout Western Zambia, we can celebrate together.
Well, friend, we're at the end of our program today. You've been listening to Galcom's Mission Compass, your guide to the Great Commission. There are many ways to partner with us. To find out more, visit our website at galcom.org. That's Galcom, spelled GALCOM.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I'm Ron Harris. Thanks for joining us today on Mission Compass, a radio ministry of Galcom International.
If you enjoyed this podcast, we upload a new episode every Monday. You can also find us on the radio or other streaming platforms. We have a list on our website. Make sure to subscribe, follow, and share. And we want to know where you're listening from, so click Mission Compass on our website, tell us, and we'll send you Galcom's devotional, 30 Days of Faith.